welcome to this episode of Authentically Abstract.
Ooh, it's Authentically Abstract. Welcome,
And
ladies
we've actually
and gentlemen.
titled this one "Believe in Yourself," and you can read that out.
Yeah, we have entitled it "Believe in Yourself."
And we do have another guest, team leader.
We have our team leader, Beth. Round of applause for Beth.
Thank you,
Beth, tell us a quick introduction before we get into it. With no shoes on. Beth with no shoes on.
So I'm your team leader, which is fantastic.
Yay!
Absolutely amazing time. You guys are brilliant.
I know.
I'm currently at university at the moment. I'm doing a music degree, which I absolutely love. But yeah, I suppose this episode I'm going to explain how I got to my degree, but the fact that it wasn't as smooth sailing.
Yeah.
There were a lot of hurdles to overcome before I got to where I am.
Yeah.
Alright, let's talk about that.
But before you start, I actually feel like it's interesting that you're going to talk about the process, because you know a lot of people, they'll just be like, oh, I started off as this and got there.
Yeah.
But they don't tell you the process of how they got there.
Yeah.
No, it's just...
Which is kind of
And
what
then
we're focusing on,
people-
because
and then
there's a
some
lot
people-
of barriers.
Yeah, and there's some people who go and compare themselves, so they're like, oh, why is this like journey so hard for me?
Yeah, like why did this work for this person? It
And
sounded
not
like it was
for me.
smooth sailing.
Exactly.
Yeah,
But-
it's definitely not.
Yeah.
I suppose it's like anything in life, isn't it, really? There's always going to be bumps in the road and things
Oh, what a
that-
nice
yeah.
outlook on life you have.
Yeah, but if everything was perfect, it wouldn't always be... Well, that's not life, is it? Nothing's going to go exactly how you want it. There's always going to
Yeah.
be like a little
Mhm.
diversion to get to where you want to go. And maybe it's not always going to be that you do get to that point straight away.
I mean, you can apply that to anything, really. Like, literally anything. I tried to put up a shelf in my room the other day. This sounds off topic, but it's not. Okay. And, you know, putting up a shelf isn't a hard task. The maximum you think is going to take is an hour at best. It took 8.
8 hours. to
8
finish
hours
off.
because we tried to drill into my wall and it kept crumbling. We had to go
Oh.
buy new stuff. The drill bit then didn't fit. We didn't have the right screws. Everything was a mess. But you know what? We got there.
Exactly. So at hour 2 or hour 4, those little bits didn't work out, but at hour 8, that was the final destination. It's there, but you've
Mhm.
got the foundation to build up for that.
And it can be frustrating.
Absolutely.
That was a surprisingly good analogy. I'm still annoyed that it took me 8 hours to put a shelf up. If you can't tell.
So I started playing music from around the age of 6 or 7. My mum had a flute in the cupboard, and I was like, I'm going to take it up, why not? So
Yeah.
throughout the entire of primary school, I was like playing at everything I could. I'd go to church all the time, playing at masses. And then I hit high school, and I continued to do it, and it was great. I was playing in all the musicals, carried on going to church, and then I was kind of in a friendship group. That was amazing. They were great friends. But I also don't feel like they allowed me to be me all the time. So I'd be like, I'm going to band rehearsal at lunchtime, and they'd be like, why are you going there again?
Yeah.
Or why do you want to do that? Or do you want to come out with us on Saturday? Or I can't, I've got band rehearsal. And they'd always kind of, I felt like maybe belittle me a little bit,
Yeah.
where I couldn't express who I wanted to be as much because they wouldn't accept the fact that I played a musical instrument. I play the flute and saxophone mainly, which I suppose aren't your typical cool instruments. It's not a drum kit or a guitar where it's...
I don't know, saxophones are great. I would love to pick up a saxophone and just be able to
Yeah.
smooth jazz.
Same.
Yeah, I mean, it's really cool and I absolutely adore it. But when I've spoken to most people, they're like, oh, so you want to be the next Ed Sheeran? And I'm like, no, that's not what I want to do.
Yeah.
I want to do the more classical side of things. And I get a lot of judgment from that, to a point where it's like, oh, well, you're not going to make it then, because that's not what's cool or what's popular.
Yeah.
Mhm.
People in like high profile places, I think he was something to do with the army, really successful dude, and I was speaking to him about what I wanted to do and the fact that I'm at university doing music. So he's like, what do you want to do with it?
Mhm.
And I'm like, I'm not too sure, maybe teach. And he's like, oh yeah, teaching's the only career that you'll be able to get into.
Yeah.
So straight away shooting me down.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, music's a really hard career anyway.
That's interesting to me because my mum's a piano teacher, and I think from a young age she knew she kind of wanted to be a teacher, because her mum was a teacher, and I think her mum's mum was also a teacher. I don't know why I'm saying her mum, my grandma. But she tried a couple of things out. You know, she played at masses as well. She did singing as well. She's always at the piano, her instrument of choice. Incredible pianist, I have to say. And she eventually did go into teaching, but there were so many different opportunities where I think she would have said, well, yeah, I could go into teaching, but let me just try this one thing out first, see if it's for me.
Yeah, that's what I want to do, is, you know, explore all the different options. Not limit myself to teaching, but the fact that people have said you are limited to teaching makes me want to go, you're wrong. Like, I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go play at the biggest concert hall that we've got.
Yeah.
Just to prove them wrong, be able to show them that I am successful. Like, with all the judgement that I've received, there was a point, I think it was around year 11, when you're making decisions like A-levels and stuff, what to take, where I fell out of love with music because my friends weren't on board with it. Don't get me wrong, I had amazing friends, the musical friends I had.
Yeah.
Where at lunchtime I'd spend all the time, but my normal group of friends weren't as accepting, I suppose. So I was like, I don't want to go to university to do this if I'm not going to have this particular group of friends to support me. But I did all my A-levels, which I did music, and pushed myself and went to university to do music. And the friends that I have now are totally different. I don't speak to any of the friends that I had beforehand, which when I look back at it, yes, it's upsetting that I've lost that friendship group, but I also think that it's the best thing that could have happened for me.
Yeah.
That lack of negativity now has been allowed me to push through. So the real me that's enthusiastic about going to church and playing the flute or standing on stage playing jazz music.
I just want to say, I've never heard of a church that has a flutist.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, no.
Like, I would love to see that, genuinely.
Yeah, we
It's
play
always
all
an
the
organ
hymns
or a
and
guitar.
stuff. Yeah, it's again, like I said, it's not one of those popular cool instruments.
That's a great instrument.
Definitely, the musical side of things in general is just a great thing. I think, like, if you can play an instrument, I just think, wow, that's great. You know, I don't know, just something about it.
Like I said, I've been playing since I was about 6, so it takes a lot of time and a lot of money.
Oh, it does.
And for someone to turn around to you and say, oh, why are you bothering, or you're not going to be good enough, you're only going to do this, or then automatically compare you to artists like Ed Sheeran and be like, if you're not this good, you're not going to get anywhere.
At just that first point, comparing you to either like one end of the spectrum where you're really famous, or the other end of the spectrum where you're teaching a couple of kids who might remember you or might not. Depends.
Yeah.
I mean, both sides of the spectrum are absolutely amazing. I wouldn't be a musician without those music teachers.
Exactly.
And we wouldn't listen to music without Ed Sheeran.
But that's not the only sides of music. Music
Absolutely.
is such a... It's quite a vague thing to define and to grasp onto, because if you think about it, it's a bunch of sounds that match. That is very cool. It's a bunch of sounds that match. And scientifically, it's weird as well, because, well, why do these specific ones match? Like, an octave doubles the frequency of sound, but that's really it in terms of scientific patterns. There you go, there's your science bit. Science bit in every episode. But it's such a weird thing that society has almost pinned down that you're either an artist or you're teaching someone who could be that artist, and that's your music career, and that's it.
Yeah, I feel like, not just from like a personal perspective, but like take coronavirus for example. When obviously a lot of stuff was going on, the government didn't necessarily support all the arts and stuff, but it's such a vital part of our lives. Like listening to music, you'll listen to it every day. If you turn on the radio, watch the TV, and for things to for judging people because of that, when it's something that's part of everybody's life.
It's a bit odd if you think about it. Like, yeah, do what you want. Sure, it might not be your thing. If someone's saying, well, are you going to be the next Ed Sheeran then, in an almost mocking tone? Okay, well, maybe I might be. Maybe I won't be. Do I want to be? Not particularly. I might in the future. I might not. It depends. It's you found what your passion is, you don't know what specifically inside that field you want to be, and that's fine, because as long as you keep at what you're good at, and what you enjoy, you'll get somewhere, and you'll get where you want to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Like now I'm at university with a totally different group of friends who are all musical, so when I stand there with my saxophone, they absolutely love it as much as I do. But then I also have the opportunity to go perform if I want to, if I teach if I want to, without that lack of judgment. I'm finding university, it's a safe space to be in.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously university's not for everyone.
Yeah.
But from having that judgment throughout high school to then push myself to go to university, that judgment's now kind of...
Yeah, it's faded away.
Yeah.
You've gotten over that hurdle of like, well, I'm gonna, as I've been saying in previous episodes, I disagree with you wholeheartedly. I'm going to ignore what you're saying, and I'm going to do what I think is best for me.
Absolutely.
It turned out to be the best.
Don't get me wrong, there's judgment everywhere. There will people that will be constantly judging you, and that's unfortunately going to be a part of life.
Yeah.
But personally, the best thing for me is to block it out, do what I feel comfortable. If I'm comfortable with what I'm doing and confident in myself, then it shouldn't matter what other people are saying. If you don't like my saxophone playing, that's fine, I'm not playing it for you.
Yeah.
You're playing it for yourself?
Yeah, absolutely.
No, it's interesting how society judges, I think musicians specifically, is quite a targeted audience. For me, I enjoy playing quite a few musical instruments, but I've tried doing through grades and that process, and I didn't find it that enjoyable. I only got to I started doing grade 2 violin and then kind of dropped it. Now in my room though, if you literally you go into my room and the first thing you see is like a guitar and a keyboard and another guitar, and I enjoy playing those. And it's just fun to have like a improvisation a bit and do all that.
I think a lot of it is that it's kind of one of those things that if you're not successful or seen as not successful, then you're not good enough.
Yeah.
Because
what is successful? Having $1 million from
when you look at the
music
music industry, it's because that they're in the charts.
Yeah.
Nobody will look at who's written the music, because I can guarantee not all.
Yeah.
Guaranteed.
Can you tell me who wrote Elton John songs? Because it wasn't Elton John.
Probably not Elton John, but nobody will look at him and go.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Elton John's not good enough because he's the face of it. Nobody will look at the composer of the song and give them the credit for it. So yes, he's not as successful in the eyes of the public, but I suppose emotionally, he's going to be so much more successful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think a lot of bands can face that issue as well, because it depends. If you think of the Beatles, they're all doing their own stuff. They're all their lead singer. But if you think of, I don't know modern bands, by the way, so you're getting the old ones. But if you think of something like Queen, their band, best band ever, by the way.
I disagree.
But their band, every single person wrote a song that hit number one. Every single person. But if I told you, can you name someone out of Queen? Who are you going to say? You can't say anything.
So you're automatically going to go for Freddie Mercury.
No one talks about Brian May. No one talks about Roger Taylor. No one talks about John Deacon. Who wrote Another One Bites the Dust?
I know the song, but I don't know.
It's a very good question.
John Deacon.
That's what I mean when it comes to the success of things. You automatically look at the face or the people that are highlighted in the media rather than the other side of things, like the people who taught Ed Sheeran to play the guitar.
It's almost, once again, that small minority that's getting endlessly and endlessly expanded exponentially through the media.
That's where a lot of the judgment comes from. Or in my personal view, it is again, I'm not that big face within music, but I'm never going to be that big face in music, and that's not my aim. So I'm going to carry on doing what I want to do.
If you don't want to be that big face in music,
be happy. Kind of.
Yeah, I want to play music. Don't get me wrong, but as long as I'm happy doing the